Here on the channel, we've already talked about my favourite LEGO Dimensions characters. I went through my 5 favourites and gave reasons why I loved playing as them in the game, but naturally, if there's 5 best characters, there has to be 5 worst characters. So today, we're going to run through the 5 characters I think are the worst to play as here in LEGO Dimensions. Whether that's because I think they're badly represented, not very useful to use in game, or even if I just don't like the franchise much. Let's take a look at my 5 worst LEGO Dimensions characters. Number 5. Bart Simpson. I know what some of you are thinking, but let me explain. I've often praised Homer as one of the coolest characters in Dimensions, but Bart couldn't be more of the opposite. Starting with his abilities, Bart doesn't have much going for him, which is already off to a bad start. He's got a slingshot he can use to hit targets, and he can use his smaller size to access these little hatches. And that's it. Whilst I do think the minifigure looks great and certainly gives Bart a lot of personality, unfortunately, that is where the good things end for Bart Simpson. Due to some really stupid rights issues, TT Games couldn't get access to the voice lines of Nancy Cartwright, who played Bart Simpson. The only member of the Simpsons cast they got rights to was Dan Castellaneta, aka the voice of Homer and Krusty, and even then they only got access to reusing pre-existing dialogue straight from the show. There's actually a text file hidden in the game's code that confirms this, which is just crazy. This means that Bart is completely silent in LEGO Dimensions, which is something that goes completely against everything Bart's character stands for. He's famous for being the attitude-ridden, smart-talking wise guy who makes funny prank calls, which makes his inclusion in Dimensions feel really poor. He doesn't talk in cutscenes, he doesn't talk in gameplay, and worst of all, he doesn't even talk to other characters. A father and son who don't talk? Man, that's depressing. So yeah, a completely misrepresented character with barely any abilities. That's Bart in Dimensions for you. Number 4. Gamer Kid. Okay, I know this one won't go down well with all of you, but Gamer Kid is a real nothing burger to me. Ability-wise, he's one of the more interesting Wave 1 characters, being able to switch between energy drinks that temporarily give him different powers. He's got everything from super strength, speed, lasers and invisibility, to even being able to make himself invincible. The problem? Man, equipping these abilities is such a headache. You gotta cycle through the different shirts, hold down the B button, and then you've only got the new power for a limited time before it resets. I like to think of the Gamer Kid as a dollar store Chase McCain, as they have similar ideas, but Chase just does things with way more personality, and mechanically I think it just works better for Chase. The other big aspect people love about Gamer Kid is that he comes with the Midway Arcade level pack, which, again, is just okay to me. I don't particularly love any of the Midway games featured in Dimensions, and the level pack itself doesn't have much in the way of personality. There's this wizard guy in an old arcade that tells you cool facts about the games, but for me, that's about it. The hub world looks cool, and unlocking all the arcade games looks like it'll definitely take a while, but honestly I'm just not that impressed by the Arcade Kid. I did just mention the similarities between Arcade Kid and Chase McCain, but it's funny to think neither of these characters are really tied to any massive licenses. They both have loads of abilities, and yet one of them just has shed loads more personality than the other, and Midway as a brand have never been all that interesting to me. Can you imagine if they did a Nintendo or even a Sega Kid? That would have been awesome. Number 3. ACU Trooper. I don't think this one is surprising anybody. Unfortunately, one thing LEGO Dimensions is very guilty of is trying to promote the, at the time, new brands and movies. The ACU Trooper from Jurassic World fits this bill all too well. Of all the characters they could have paired with Owen Brady for a team pack, why this guy? I don't even think he's an actual named guy from the movie. He's just some dude. I've seen so many people ask why they couldn't have just used Claire instead. And I gotta agree, why not? The only abilities ACU Trooper brings to the table are the electricity from his stun rod and being able to light up dark areas. The electricity ability is annoying because, not counting vehicles, ACU is one of only 3 characters to share this ability, the other 2 being Raven and Joker. Like, could they have not just given Claire the stun rod? Or do they not want to pay for the rights to another voice for the game? This sucks especially hard as TT Games had already made LEGO Jurassic World by this time, with it being the game that literally preceded LEGO Dimensions directly, even teasing Dimensions in its ending cutscene. It's just so funny to me that they went with some guy when there are so many more iconic characters in the Jurassic franchise. Like, I'd literally have taken an actual dinosaur as a playable character over this guy. It would have made things way more interesting. And that's all there is to say about the ACU Trooper. He just feels like a spot filler on the character roster, and that always sucks when that happens, especially when you're paying for that character in a 2-pack. Number 2. E.T. Alright, this one was a difficult choice. I personally love little goblins, aliens, and creatures of all varieties, but despite E.T. looking like a goblin alien love child, he's really not that great as a playable character in LEGO Dimensions. He's got a surprising amount of abilities, being able to hop through mini-vents, repair things, use magic, stealth, create light, and even regenerate his own health. But even with that unique array of abilities, I just don't like playing as him. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy we got an E.T. minifigure, but there's not a lot else I can say I really enjoy about his inclusion in the game. The E.T. Adventure World, for example, really isn't all that appealing to me. It looks very drab and lifeless, and unfortunately not all that fun to explore. It's almost as bad as the South Africa hub from LEGO Marvel's Avengers. E.T. feels like a divisive pick for this list because yes, he's iconic and comes from a classic movie, but I think he adds to the weird 80s obsession Dimensions seem to have. We get it, TT Games, you grew up in the 80s, it's okay. About the only fun thing to do with E.T. is make him run the special stage in the Sonic level. There's something absolutely awe-striking about seeing this little guy run a full loop-de-loop. He's not the worst guy in Dimensions by any means, but for me personally, I'm just not a huge fan. Honourable mentions. Green Arrow is an awfully mishandled character in my opinion, being one of the rarer and more expensive figures in the game. Arrow was given out in a polybag as a promo item when buying the Dimensions starter pack, except he came out during year 2, meaning if you had been one of the original people supporting the game during year 1, you'd have either had to buy the whole game again or pay eBay prices just to get him. What's worse than that is they actively took away abilities that he had in other LEGO games. He could destroy silver studs in LEGO Batman 2, and he could use tech in LEGO Batman 3, meaning in Dimensions, where he's one of the rarest characters, he's also the worst version of Green Arrow in a LEGO game. I think at a minimum they should have given him some trick arrows to shatter glass or blow up silver studs again, similar to what Hawkeye can do in the LEGO Marvel games. Arrow was clearly only here to promote the CW show at the time, same as another character later on this list, but it just makes me wish we got the Flash or Green Lantern instead. Tina Goldstein is another character who feels rather pointless. Though it should be said she has a great arsenal of abilities, the issue with Tina is that once again she feels like a bit of a wasted slot. Whilst it's obvious to anyone that she was included to help flesh out the Fantastic Beasts inclusion, that doesn't make her necessary at all. But she also unfortunately claims the least iconic magician slot in the whole game. Tina's biggest crime is simply being forgettable, which is funny to me as she was actually the first LEGO Dimensions character I ever owned, when one of my parents found her for £1 whilst on holiday. I don't have an awful lot more to say for Tina Goldstein, but it's really hard to justify her inclusion when there's hundreds of Harry Potter characters that would have been much better, like Ron, Neville, Ginny, or even a young Dumbledore if you want to stick to the Fantastic Beasts side of things. Number 1. Supergirl. Supergirl, on paper, is the perfect LEGO Dimensions character to many people. She's got a wide variety of powers and abilities, she's from an iconic franchise, and she's a great pick for many reasons. I even included her in the honourable mentions for my top 5 video. But my main issue? She's like the exact same thing as Superman. Supergirl was a promotional character given out during year 2 of LEGO Dimensions. She was also given out with copies of the starter pack, meaning she technically cost a minimum of £100. But what makes her even worse than Green Arrow is that she was also platform specific. You had to buy a special version of the PlayStation 4 starter pack during year 2 to receive her. This is like all the worst bits of Arrow, but with exclusivity piled on top of that. This is kind of a slap in the face to the majority of the Dimensions audience when you think about it. What if you already owned the game and had been supporting Dimensions throughout the whole of year 1? What if you were a collector and just had to have it? What if you didn't own a PlayStation 4? Well, your options were either to buy a new copy of the starter pack, or again, face eBay prices. And then once you've paid the price, you just get a reskinned Superman with a couple of extra abilities. The only real difference for Supergirl is that she can change into the Red Lantern costume, which grants her the use of digging and construct abilities. Other than that, she's the exact same character. Also, some of you were shocked to see me pick Bubbles over Supergirl in the top 5 video, but honestly, I think I'm right. Supergirl doesn't even give you access to a new adventure world, whereas all of the Powerpuff Girls play very similarly to her, with lasers, flight, frost breath, and all of them being able to do lantern constructs. Plus, the Powerpuff Girls also come with
the City of Townsville,
which means they actually include more content than Supergirl. Well, there you have it. My list of the 5 worst characters in LEGO Dimensions, plus a couple of honourable mentions. What did you think of the list? Make sure you let me know your worst characters in the comments. I also want to give a very big shout out to the first ever Goblin friend, Halfway YT. Halfway became a Goblin friend by becoming a channel member, which means they get shout outs at the end of every major video release, special emojis and icons on the channel, and the ability to vote and suggest ideas for future content. We've got more content coming for some other LEGO games, plus more LEGO Dimensions stuff yet to come. With all of that said, thank you once again for watching, and remember to subscribe so you don't miss any future content, and follow GoblinBricks for more.